Hi everyone, welcome to Career Board. I'm Vinod, and we're going to talk today about applying to universities abroad, and specifically going to focus on those universities which give a complete GRE waiver. So you don't need to use a GRE to apply to these universities. So I'm going to talk about close to 50 odd universities in the US which do not expect a GRE, and let's jump in. So I have posting on Medium, which is a blog where I've listed on all the universities. I'm going to review my blog entry and discuss the details about every university. So it's pretty much going through just engineering schools, and I'm going to look at it from a top to down order. So roughly the rankings in terms of the display order corresponds to their overall engineering rankings. So we're going to begin with MIT. So it's absolutely fantastic that MIT, a lot of departments like the EECS, the Electrical Engineering and Computer Sciences Department, the Department of Management, the Department of Material Science and Engineering, DMSC, Mechanical, Chemical, Biological Engineering, many of them have said that they do not look for GRE scores. So for example, if you look at the EECS website, they say that we do not use the GRE scores during the admissions process. The material science website says that the department is suspending the GRE requirement for this year. Mechanical says that nope, there is no minimum acceptable GRE score. We require GRE scores from all applicants for the 2022 admissions process, but engineering will not require GRE tests for graduate admission for 2022. So do check up the website. Chemical engineering says that they are not accepting GRE scores. Biological engineering say that they do not require the GRE test. So MIT, clearly they do not want the GRE. But maybe there are specific departments which still need the GRE, so do check up their websites. Stanford, all programs except management, science, and engineering, no GRE. So they do not require the GRE, which is absolutely fantastic for those students who are shooting for MIT, Stanford, or Berkeley. Berkeley, it depends on the specialization you're applying for. Civil says that it no longer requires or accepts the GRE. But if you look at industrial engineering or operations research, it says the GRE is required. So in every university, the rules are not uniform. Every department specialization can set up their own rules. For example, one department can say they need the GRE, another can say it's optional, another one can say that it's absolutely not required. And this can even vary within the MS or PhD applications. In some places, MS admissions process requires GRE, the PhD doesn't. In some cases, the PhD admissions process requires GRE and the MS doesn't. So it could be either or. In Berkeley, for the MS program, yes, the GRE is required for the industrial engineering department. For PhD program, it's optional. Bioengineering, it says that it's optional. And for the EECS department, it says that no longer requires or accepts the GRE scores. Mechanical engineering, it says that GRE scores are not required. Material science, it says that it's optional. So what it means by optional is that it could help a lot, especially if you are not the strongest candidate to send your GRE scores. So GRE has a weightage. They do look at other components, but then if you want your application to stand out, it's preferable that you send your GRE, you write your GRE as early as possible and send the scores whenever they say it's optional. Ignoring it could weaken your application a little. Let's look at other universities. Georgia Tech, GRE not required for the chemical and biomolecular engineering departments. Material science does not require, but the industrial systems and engineering departments does require. And civil engineering programs do require the GRE for both MS and PhD programs. For the ECE, the electronics and communication engineering school, it's optional. Texas Austin, the ECE, electronics and communication engineering department, they say the GRE scores are no longer required. Mechanical engineering and the operations research specializations, they say that they do accept the official scores till Jan 15th. So it looks like it's optional there. For chemical engineering, it says that we do not require. Civil engineering says that it's waived. They don't require. Material sciences says not required. Aerospace engineering is basically again, it says required, but of late they've given waiver for people, and just check up their website before you apply. So you can get a waiver for the aerospace engineering department at Texas Austin. Carnegie Mellon University, they do not require GRE for chemical, biomedical, mechanical, material science, ECE, and civil engineering. Cornell, the electrical and computer engineering school, does not require the GRE scores. If you're looking at MS in mechanical and aerospace engineering, they say that GRE scores are not being accepted. The civil and environmental engineering school says that they do not require GRE scores. But for other schools, I do think it is required. University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, computer science not required. Civil and environmental engineering, it's optional. And for the chemical engineering school, it's not required. University of Michigan, looks like it's no longer included, it's not required. So for any specialization in the University of Michigan, you don't need a GRE score. University of Wisconsin, it does not require GRE for any of the programs and specializations. Columbia University in New York, so it says that GRE is not required. But it says that if you're applying for applied physics PhD, you may require the GRE scores, but for the engineering school, pretty much they do not look for GRE scores. UCLA says it's not required, but this is only for the electrical engineering specialization. So for the other specializations, it looks like they do expect you to provide the GRE scores. Purdue University, material sciences, environmental engineering, biological engineering, biomed, ECE, electrical and computer engineering, which is optional, civil engineering, computer science. Many programs do not require the GRE scores. Caltech, it says that the GRE test is not required and the scores will not be considered. University of Pennsylvania, it's Ivy League school. It's one of the best Ivy League schools after Cornell for engineering. It says the GRE scores is optional. So again, University of Pennsylvania, if you want to apply, you may want to think about giving a GRE, even though it's not absolutely required. But if you have a weaker application, the GRE scores will help you stand out. Princeton has a detailed list of which programs is optional, which one does not require, which is not accepted, and so on. So do look at this list and you get a good sense of which programs want and which programs do not. NYU University, New York University. So a bunch of universities, the ones in red says the GRE is required, which is for biotech, for the transportation, planning and engineering PhD programs. But for most other programs, it's optional. This is not waived for New York University, but it's optional. Arizona State University. It's waived for most programs, but there are some exceptions where they do require the GRE scores. So for example, software engineering, robotics and autonomous systems, computer engineering, computer science, electrical engineering, construction engineering, civil engineering, environmental engineering. For the MS programs, you will need the GRE scores. Likewise, for the PhD program, computer science is required, but you can get an exception. But for electrical engineering, it is required. So basically, computers, electrical, civil at Arizona State, they do require the GRE scores. Harvard University. So again, it depends. So every specialization within Harvard looks at the expectations differently. So some of the programs say that is optional. Some of them say that they do not require the GRE scores. So highly recommend that you check up the Harvard University website. Dartmouth, it says that GRE is not required for both MS and PhD programs. University of Minnesota in Minneapolis, GRE is not required for chemical engineering, material science, industrial and systems engineering, ECE, electrical and computer engineering is not, electronics and computer engineering not required, aerospace, mechanical not required, civil and environmental, yes, required, and it's optional for biomedical. Duke University. So I've clubbed this into different categories. Some of them are absolutely required, some of them are optional, and again, it's optional for some others. So do look at this. The ones in yellow are the ones which link to engineering, and it says very clearly which ones are required. It's absolutely required only for computer science. For others, is pretty much optional. So it's not waived for Duke University. The advantage Duke University is it is in the Research Triangle Park in North Carolina, so it's easy to get jobs after you go to Duke University. So the Research Triangle Park is probably the next biggest cluster of tech jobs after the Bay Area. It's like Austin in many ways. And Duke University, North Carolina State University, University of North Carolina, these are great universities to go to if you want to get a job in the Research Triangle Park. So optional, GRE scores optional for Duke University pretty much. University of Washington, GRE is optional for material science, chemical, and bioengineering, and is not needed for civil aerospace, industrial and systems engineering, electrical, mechanical, and computer science. Johns Hopkins University. So Johns Hopkins University is one of the topmost universities, especially for biomedical, anything linked to medicine. So it's not required for PhD applications pretty much, but it is required for master's applications. And you can check up the relevant website to see more. University of Chicago, it's optional pretty much for most programs. It does say that if you're looking for PhD programs in medical physics, biochemistry, they probably require you to submit the GRE scores. University of California, Santa Barbara, UCSB. GRE is needed for masters in electronics and communication and computer engineering and structural civil engineering PhD programs and computer science master's programs. It is not required for mechanical engineering, aerospace engineering, and structural master's programs, bioengineering and CSE PhD programs, computer science PhD programs. It is optional for chemical and electronics and communication engineering PhD programs. So do check up the website to learn more. Penn State University, PSU. In most universities, most specializations, it's optional, like material science, electrical engineering, and computer science, and is not needed for biomedical, mechanical, and industrial engineering, including manufacturing engineering. Virginia. University of Virginia is again a very good school where it says that it's pretty much optional for most programs. Texas A&M University. At Texas A&M, it says that it's pretty much optional for most programs, and there for certain programs is optional, but for most programs is waived. The GRE requirement has been waived for fall 2022 and spring 2023 applicants. So I think the trend is going to continue. So pretty much you can expect for fall 2023 for Texas A&M to have the same expectation that GRE has been waived for most applicants. University of Southern California is not required for fall 2023 applicants. GRE not required. And it also says that if it's submitted, it will not be reviewed. So clearly not required. Ohio State University in Columbus. It depends on the specialization. The electrical and computer engineering school, it says the GRE is not required. Computer science engineering, GRE not required. Civil engineering, it says that it is required. Official GRE scores have to be reported. The mechanical and aerospace engineering, they said they permanently removed the GRE. They don't need the GRE. And for I think the ECE, I mean, I need to check this in terms of whether they need it or not, but the ECE, the electrical and computer engineering department, they also mentioned that the MS students need to supply a official GRE score. So do check up the website for more information. Rice University, they do not need the GRE score. University of Florida, depending on specialization in the list here, some programs need that, some programs do not. No, I think most programs do not need the GRE for either master's or PhD programs. So University of Florida, no GRE. Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute in New York, RPI. Again, not many people know about this, but a lot of IIT students do always get into this place. So the GRE scores are optional. University of Rochester. So the University of Rochester is interesting because it depends on the specialization. So if it's chemical engineering, it's optional. For biomedical engineering is not required. Electrical and computer engineering is optional. And for computer science, it's you can get a waiver by writing to them. Case Western Reserve University, CWRU. Computer Science Electrical Engineering, GRE scores are waived. For Aerospace Engineering is optional. Illinois Institute of Technology in Chicago. So they basically said that they're no longer requiring students to submit GRE or GMAT scores for master's programs. So do check up their website in terms of what is it they're looking for. Boston University. The GRE, it says that for PhD programs, GRE is not needed. In MSc, which I believe is Material Science and Engineering, again, GRE is not required. And for master's applicants, it says that they're not required to submit the GRE. So again, GRE not required for Boston University. Washington University at St. Louis is called WUSTL, but it's called Washington University. It's different from University of Washington, which is in Seattle. Washington University is in the state of Missouri and it's based in St. Louis, which again is a really good place for a lot of people to settle down. And most programs have decided to keep the GRE general score optional. So it says that all PhD programs, GRE is optional. Master's programs is optional, and it's required for computer science and engineering alone. So that's the case with Washington University of St. Louis. SUNY State University of New York at Buffalo. It says the GRE is not required for some programs, needed for some programs, and is optional for some. It's not needed for a bunch, but it is needed for computer science PhD, chemical and biological engineering PhD, industrial systems PhD. It's optional for civil PhD, biomedical engineering MS, and PhD programs. And it's not needed for civil masters, computer science masters, chemical masters, industrial system masters. University of Arizona. GRE course is not required for biomedical, chemical, and computer science, but it is needed for aerospace, electrical and computer engineering, mechanical, and material science. NCSU, North Carolina State University. So this is very close to Research Triangle Park, and its GRE scores are not required for material science, civil, biomedical, mechanical, and aerospace engineering. It is optional for industrial and systems engineering and operations research, but it is needed for the electrical and computer engineering specialization. NEU, Northeastern University in Boston. They also have a bunch of campuses across the US. So it's optional for Northeastern University. And chemical engineering department says that they don't need the GRE scores. Florida Tech. Again, here the requirement has been waived. So you don't need the GRE to apply to Florida Tech. Okay, so I basically come to the end of my list of universities, which I believe is around 47 universities, which do not require the GRE. So if you have any comments, let me know in the comments below. If you have any questions, let me know. I'd be happy to answer. And before you leave, I'm sure you found this video very interesting. So make sure you hit the like button and do subscribe to my channel if you're not subscribed so far. And click the bell icon so that you keep getting regular feeds in terms of whenever I post a video, it comes to your news feed. And I think that's the minimum you can do in terms of showing your support for this channel. Thanks, everyone. So let me know what else you want me to discuss in future videos. But till then, I had fun talking to you, and cheers, everyone. Bye-bye.